Ladies and gentlemen, we're comparing the Honda S2000 to the brand new Honda Civic Type R, the FL5 generation. And the reason we're comparing these two very different cars, separated by over 20 years, is because we want to see, does the new Civic Type R continue the ethos, the spirit, the DNA of Honda Motorsports? The Honda S2000 in the AP1 form, I feel, is such a great representation of peak Honda. So let's get behind the wheel, let's reacquaint ourselves with how this car drives, and then we're going to compare it to the brand new Honda Civic. And we are keeping the top up for your audio pleasure today. Plus it's kind of chilly out here in Northern California in December. Oh my goodness, the transmission. Honda, I mean, since the very beginning, Honda has had some of the most amazing gearboxes. And this Honda S2000, I think, is the best in the business. AP1, so we have a 9,000 RPM red line. And when that VTEC kicks in, it really just sings. The car feels a little bit sluggish before you get above around 6,000 RPM. And that's a totally different animal. Woo! AP1s, in my mind, or S2000s done right because they're a little bit more razor edge. A little bit snappy, no traction control, no stability, just you and the machine. Great pedal placement for heel toe. Very communicative, and even though this is a first generation EPS, the AP1 steering is superior to the AP2 in my mind, and part of that is the faster steering ratio that helps you feel like it has more communication because it amplifies any feedback. So is it as good as hydraulic steering? Absolutely not. I think the steering is one of the major limitations of the S2000, but in the AP1 you don't really notice it as much as you do in the AP2. Yeah, this willingness to rotate on throttle is beautiful. Give an adequate amount of grip. Yes. There's a reason these cars are so loved, guys. I mean, the chassis is so communicative. That red line, though. What other four cylinders give you that level of enjoyment? Especially in the rear. Not handling this bumpy Mines Road as well as some other examples that I've driven. Very easy to heel toe. The DNA, the ethos of this car is one of driver enjoyment, driver engagement, purity, naturally aspirated, incredible transmission, the most mechanical, bolt action rifle, direct positive engagement transmission that you could ask for. Best in the business. And even if the steering doesn't talk to you that much compared to, let's say, hydraulic racks or a Lotus, the rest of the car does. It sends you so much information through all other inputs. God, I love the way these things handle. They do exactly what you want. What a good girl. With the faster steering ratio too, you feel like you get a sharper, more immediate turn, which I enjoy. Now again, even with an AP2, you can get that with some suspension changes, with some steering changes. quite dirty when I was looking under the hood, and you're not getting as precise brake pedal feel as I have definitely experienced in other S2000s. Likely has a good amount of moisture in it. Oh yeah, that rotation on throttle. I mean, these cars are just so playful, so easy to just dance with. And that's what it's really about. It's dancing with the car, being one with the vehicle. And the Honda S2000 is the embodiment of that. There's a reason these cars, I mean, this example, the owner purchased for around $27,000 at 60,000 miles. I think it's a pretty good deal. I was looking for an S2000 myself, and the prices were generally more elevated than that. And the reason these cars hold their value so insanely well are now appreciating is that it's so hard to replicate this driver experience. Especially in modern day, that rawness, that visceral nature, it's delicious, guys. It is delicious. On the way up, I was having some issues with second gear grinding, but on the way down, giving it the beans a little bit, not so much of an issue. The owner was saying that fourth gear will sometimes pop out, so we're gonna say fifth. Now let's see how this compares to the Civic Type R. Does the Civic Type R continue that Honda ethos, that Honda purity? Every time I get behind the wheel of one of these, I tell myself I have to get one. And today is no exception, guys. Honda S2000 AP1 stock. If you have to go stock, I would say AP1 over AP2. If you're going to modify, however, then AP2 over AP1 because of the advantages that that car has. Overall, such a special vehicle. If you ever have the chance to drive one, definitely do. If you have the chance to own one, definitely do, especially if you fit in it.
Suspension, chassis mods, aero, maybe. That's it. Driving.
All right, now we're in the Honda Civic Type R. This is the 2023 model year, the first year of the FL5 generation, brand new, based off of the prior gen platform. And let's see how it compares to that Honda S2000. This car is 22 years older, but does it still maintain that same Honda DNA, that heritage, that lineage that we all love from Hondas? FL5 looks much more mature, much more grown up than the FK8 generation. And this example is bone stock, except for Eibach lowering springs, which have a about 10% increase in spring rate over stock and a 0.6-inch drop. This car in person, my God, what a looker. The classic 3 exhaust setup as always. And let's see how this bad boy drives. Big shout out to Michael Baxi Media for letting me review his brand new Civic Type R. Go check out his channel. He makes some awesome content linked in the description below. Right off the bat, I gotta say that the interior on this new generation Civic, even on the lower trims, is so nice. The steering wheel, this leather feels amazing. I love this honeycomb texture with the air vents, very clean. I can't believe this is a Honda Civic, man. These are, I mean, the Alcantara over here, the build quality, the fit and finish is a huge step up from the prior generation. Seats are also incredibly comfortable. The FK8 was already fantastic, and these FL5 seats are arguably even better. Now we have this in individual mode. This is quite a bumpy road. So we have suspension and comfort. Now that shift sound is not disabled. I don't think you can disable it in this car. Kind of a funny sound if you ask me. But wow, this car is incredibly capable right off the bat. Steering is beautifully weighted, actually, especially for a front-wheel drive vehicle. It's very difficult to get really good steering input. The weighting on this is very appropriate. It's heavier than a Honda S2000. Now, compared to the S2000, can you feel that same ethos? I'd argue yes. But you have to remember, this car comes out 22 years later. And as a result, you get more weight. You get more refinement. It doesn't have that same screaming 9,000 RPM redline. You have a 7,000 RPM redline, and rather than naturally aspirated, it's turbocharged. You lose that throttle input, that immediacy of throttle response that you have in the S2000. Part of that is that it's drive-by-wire. And part of that is because it's turbocharged. Now there is still torque steer. People talk about how torque steer is eliminated from this generation. I noticed it in the FK8. I noticed it in the FL5. I would say it's a little bit improved in the FL5 over the FK8. But if you are being ham-fisted and being a bit of a gorilla, as I sometimes do with that throttle, then you can definitely get some torque steer. Now this car does rev match and you cannot disable it. But the pedal placement for heel toe is not as ideal as in some other Hondas. In the Honda S2000, you do have better pedal placement. The transmission, in classic Honda fashion, is fantastic, but is it Honda S2000 good? I would say no. There's a little bit more lateral slop. Not as positive on gate entry. And it's not, I mean, still very good, but not as confidence inspiring as some of the best Honda transmissions. This is a pretty bumpy road, and even in comfort, this is getting kind of rough. Yeah, I'm bouncing all around. They did add quite a bit of structural adhesives to this vehicle, which improves the chassis rigidity over the FK8. It's a little bit longer as well. They stretch out the platform by, I believe, about an inch or two, inch and a half, something like that. Yep, definitely some torque steer there. Ooh, I'm bouncing all around, boys. Pogo sticking. Now, same Turbo 4 as in the prior generation, although they did update the shifter linkages. If I'm being honest, the transmission feel in both this and the prior generation is quite similar. They do have a lighter flywheel, so the automatic rev matching is definitely better in this than in the prior gen, in the FK8. And you can definitely feel the added rigidity to this chassis. Throttle response, very similar to the FK8. Again, these are drive-by-wire turbocharged systems, so not as immediate as some other cars. Brake feel is fantastic, very communicative. They spent a lot of time working on the durability and the endurance of this car, the heat management, so that when you're pushing it on track, you're not going to heat soak the engine. It's not going to hold you back. That was more of an issue in the prior gen. They've also made some changes to the suspension to help with camber stability with lateral Gs. So as the suspension loads up, you're able to maintain a better contact patch. That's going to help you maintain better grip. The fake engine noise has been disabled by the owner, thankfully. And unfortunately, due to budgetary reasons, they weren't able to develop a more mechanical system to, such as a sound tube, to have noise piped through the cabin. It's not terribly quiet though. Oh my god, this is so bouncy. For a road like this is way too stiff. Not pleasant. It's getting unsettled, it's bouncing here and there, it's getting... We're pogo sticking a little bit. FL5 over FK8. Marginal improvements. It's the sum of these small little changes, the body adhesive, the improved cooling, the slight changes to the suspension, the L-shaped lower control arms versus the A-shaped. All these things add up to a slightly more refined, a slightly more buttoned down package. And the interior is a huge step up. The seats, I would even say, are a small step up, and they were already so fantastic. Now, compared to the Honda S2000, does the Civic Type R continue the ethos, the spirit, the heritage? And I would say, for the most part, yeah. I mean, this is a 4-door, right? 4-seater, much more practical, much more comfortable vehicle. The transmission is a bit of a downgrade for the most part, even with the upgraded shifter linkages compared to the prior generation FK8. Not nearly as good as a Honda S2000 shifter. Pedal placement is also a bit of a downgrade. Steering, I would argue, is an upgrade. This does have better feel. The weighting is more appropriate. It is more precise. Again, this car is new. Doesn't have as many mileage. That was a kind of somewhat tired example of a Honda S2000. The fluids definitely needed to be changed. Not just the brake, but the transmission, etc., etc. How I would summarize this is, if you compare it to the Honda S2000, you're taking some of that purity and you are definitely diluting it. This is not a front engine rear wheel drive compact sports car that is not practical, right? You are diluting it in the sense that you have all this practicality. It's much larger, it's much more quiet, it is heavier, substantially so, by several hundreds of pounds, but it still maintains some of that connectedness. It maintains some of that driver enjoyment and focus that we have come to love from Honda. But let me know what you think. Honda S2000, Civic Type R, which one would you guys choose? Leave a comment down below. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you guys in that next one.